Hello everyone, a quick update as Beckhoff has made a big announcement. When I woke up this morning, I felt a disturbance in the force. It was a disturbance I've never felt before. And well, it wasn't really a disturbance of the force in the Star Wars kind of theme. It was more, my inbox was just bombarded with messages from people that said that Beckhoff has made a big announcement and you have to check it out. And that's what I did. So I thought we together look at this a little bit. And first of all, TwinCAT PLC++, the next generation PLC technology. I gotta say, I like the name PLC++. I guess that refers, to the equivalent of C and C++, C++ being an extension of C kind of thing. So PLC++ is a better version of their their current PLC. So whoever came up with the name, I like it. Good work. Based on well over 40 years of experience with state-of-the-art automation technology, Beckhoff presents the newly developed TwinCAT PLC++, enabling control engineers to make a real leap in project performance. OMG. Both engineering and runtime can be accelerated, while the well-known TwinCAT advantages of consistent integration, compatibility, and openness continue to be delivered. Wow, that sounds fancy. Okay, a lot of sales talk, I would say. But here now, some interesting things come. TwinCAT PLC++ is a completely new development from Beckhoff that integrates seamlessly into existing TwinCAT ecosystem. So that's already... I have like a million gazillion questions popping up in my head, like crazy immediately. Completely new development. Okay, so is it a completely new development environment? Is it somehow something that plugins to the existing development environment based on the TCXE shell? Because at the same time, they talk about integrate seamlessly into the existing TwinCAT ecosystem. So what are they referring to here? How is this technically, what's the difference? Is it something like the Siemens Simatic AX, where it's a completely different development environment, but they develop libraries that are plugged into the existing TIA portal? Is this what Beckhoff are thinking about here? There's, of course, I read the rest already, and there's like no details about this, but, I'm really trying to grab the straws here to extract any information I can. And next we go on, of course, TwinCAT PLC++ continues to be based on languages described in ISC 611-31-3. So, okay, we know that it's not like new languages. It's not going to do C++, Python, C#.NET, anything like that. It's going to be the languages we're used to. And it says languages here, so I'm assuming they're not just going to give support for structured text, but also the graphical languages. So due to, but not limited to, the advanced compiler technology and the new architecture used, a significant leap in engineering and runtime performance can be achieved. Okay, so that's always good, of course. A leap in engineering. For me, this really sounds like it's gonna be a different development environment because, we're not gonna be based on this heavy TCXE shell with all the dependencies, for example, to the Codesys compiler that's integrated there. They actually talk about this later, so this we for sure know that's not gonna be the case. Interesting, an increase in runtime performance. That's of course good, though that's not my primary concern, or not the primary advantage here. That's always nice, though this has, to be honest with you, never been a big issue for me with Beckhoff control systems. Again, it being PC-based control. This is, however, important for me and my daily work. Okay, now it's a little bit of sales talk again. Blah, 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 blah. Sale. Buy our stuff. Please buy our stuff. We are the best. We are the best. Don't protest. We are absolutely the best. Okay, environments such as editors and compilers based on IT models. So again, and I think this whole idea, because the word IT kind of comes back here over and over again. And I think this is really clear kind of where Beckhoff are weighted against, So traditionally, our industry, the automation industry, has traditionally not have people from the software industry. It's a much broader thing, right? Because you have to know a lot more than just writing the software. Software is just a tiny fraction of it. So the tooling around it has traditionally not been weighted for people coming from the IT industry. And Beckhoff are kind of like the counterpart to this, right? The focus here is to leverage all the advancements we made from the IT industry and put that into OT. And that's even more clear here. It was clear with TwinCAT, with the traditional TwinCAT PLC development environment, And it's probably going to be even more clear here. What's more, Beckhoff has placed particular emphasis on the possibility of using DevOps principles to implement continuous integration and continuous deployment. So, for instance, I've written a little bit about this on my blog. I talked a little bit about it on other videos here on my YouTube channel. And if just based on my clients and the industry of where I see it's going, this is absolutely a must-have for the future. So, and Beckhoff have obviously identified this based on, the industry and where it's going, not just where the industry is going, like the literal clients, but also how the other vendors, how they're starting to approach the OT industry. So again, like I said, I made a video about it, even Siemens with the new Semantic AX platform. I mean, a giant like Siemens, when they're even approaching it, then Beckhoff obviously feel the pressure to do something about this. The same thing with Codesys. Codesys with their new Codesys Go platform that they're going to release. I mean, it's the same pattern, kind of you see there. It's the same buzzwords, the same keywords they're dropping. The result, a PLC that is extremely advanced in terms of technology, blah, 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 sales talk, performance gains in engineering and runtime. I'm going to focus on this part, engineering. That's the interesting one for me. TwinCAT PLC, blah, 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 offers significant performance. Okay. The same code executed twice as fast as before. Okay, that's fine, I guess. I mean, I really don't have this super big need of that. That's not what has been my problems with using Beckhoff. The performance has never, ever have I thought, I wish I had a slightly faster PLC. So I'm not going to say no to this. This is obviously huge and very important. But, I mean, one of the reasons why I used Beckhoff in the first place was because it has such, the PLCs have the PC-based control idea compared to their competitors is just, you get the whole advantage of the development and evolution of PCs, which is like huge, right? And so performance has always been just never had to think about it. I always got a lot more than I ever needed. But again, I'm very happy that Beckhoff are working on this to make it even faster. As a highlight, the new compiler makes it possible to further optimize the control code in terms of execution. This option, known from the IT world, leads to further significant increase in execution speed. Fantastic. This means that an industrial PC with less computing power may be sufficient for the previous machine control system, thereby reducing hardware costs. Okay, so if the hardware platforms remains unchanged, the freed up computer resources can be used to implement more functionality, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but here's the thing, actually. My convention, so maybe I shouldn't say this now because, but the thing here is, of course, when, let's say I buy a PLC with performance class 50, right? And, the thing with Beckhoff is kind of like when they release a PLC with performance class 50, it's going to be 50 at that point in time, right? When they release it. And it's going to stay 50 for all eternity, as long as they produce and deliver that PLC. But, then like 3 years later, they're going to release this another PLC with performance class 50. It's just that it's going to use a much newer CPU. And I'm getting more performance even for the same cost. And that what I've seen with my clients, what they've done is that, okay, now, we used to use a PLC with performance class 50 here. Now we're not going to use that because, the next generation of PLCs is like, it's 50% faster. So now I can go with a PLC that has performance class 40. So it's not just going to give me lower prices in terms of the hardware, but it's also, and more importantly, gonna give me lower prices in terms of their licensing, the software licensing. Because again, Beckhoff, for anyone that is watching my YouTube channel, Beckhoff have this runtime cost that is linked to their performance classes, which is kind of like the hardware kind of part of it all. So the higher the performance class, the more the license costs. So that's why people kind of want to go back as much as possible. So yeah, definitely if the hardware platform remains unchanged, but my experience is that people kind of like, okay, see an opportunity here to go down with the performance class. And excellent for the client especially if you get double the performance, right? But something has to give, I guess. So this is interesting, definitely. Further performance gain can be achieved by combining the MC3. Okay, I'm not going to talk about MC3 here. That's the new motion control library. I'm very happy with MC2, but of course, I've been using it since long. But of course, I'm very happy that this is gonna be that I'm gonna be able to use this one. From an engineering perspective, now, this is where the interesting things happen. TwinCAT PLC++ achieves shorter throughput times all the way from the control development and commissioning to the entire machine lifecycle. This is achieved by reducing operating times with the help of shortening of shorter project loading times and an improved translation process. The minimized project lead time significantly reduce cost and also enable new machines and systems to be launched more quickly. So this is a little, again, sales talk. It's not really clear what they mean with this. So, achieve shorter throughput time. So, I have my pain points with Beckhoff. I have my real annoyance points with Beckhoff and TwinCAT. And I think I've been quite clear both through here on YouTube and when I met Beckhoff, like, you have to fix this. I have, my clients and they're doing this. We're doing all these magical things. But, in the middle of all these magical things that you're doing, then there is this horrible, horrible, horrible thing called the TwinCAT automation interface. I'm not going to say horrible. That's not fair. But it is horrible in respect to everything else. So relative to everything else, right? And that's, of course, what I'm assuming they have worked on here, because they're mentioning stuff with the CLI. Anyway, I'm continuing here because we get a little more information. By the way, a little sidetrack. This is Josef. He's a very, very nice person. If you watch this, Josef, hello there. Increased user friendliness. Beckhoff was able to incorporate almost 30 years of TwinCAT experience into the development of TwinCAT PLC++. That's good. The feedback from over 20,000 TwinCAT users. Okay, so now we actually have a number of how many TwinCAT users there are over the world. I mean, I made some guesses based on how many people watch my TwinCAT videos. But, most of the people are kind of like new people getting into the Beckhoff world, and they are the ones contacting me, asking questions. So I had like literally very tough time to estimate this number. But okay, so now we know there are 20,000 people working with TwinCAT, and we're probably going to get much more in the coming years. Enhanced support for developers is provided by a programming assistant based on TwinCAT Chat. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, for me, this is not a huge thing. I use it in my daily work when I don't do automation software. I'm going to make separate videos about this. Expandable code snippets, blah, blah, blah. An online-offline code comparison. Okay, and favorites pool. Not sure what this refers to exactly. This allows developer to blah, blah, blah. Let's look here. Full ISC conformity and high code quality. As a member of the German ISC group, Beckhoff has direct influence on the latest developments in standardization and best practices. TwinCAT PLC++ is almost fully compliant with the 4th edition of ISC 611. Okay, so this is interesting actually, because the 4th edition is not released. I think if I remember correctly, it's going to be released next year. It's not a day too late, because ISC, I mean, the 3rd edition, which is the edition before the 4th edition, is from 2012. So, if you thought it's a long time between the different standards for C++, then welcome to ISC, like 13 years. And I think it was like 10 years before the 3rd and 2nd edition, and another 10 years before the 2nd and 1st. So it's like ages. Anyway, so I guess the plan here, I mean, this is quite clear. This is not going to be released before the 4th edition is finished, right? So Beckhoff are targeting the 4th edition with this new platform. If they're anyway going to develop something that's brand new, fresh, that's going to be working with the 4th edition. Blah, 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 blah. Different automation system. In addition, it is possible to use standard compliant object orientation, including classes and access. So this is a little bit like what we can do in Semantic AX, right? You have not exactly classes, but something called function blocks in the ISC standard, and access modifications. So, okay, we have this, with the Codesys compiler, though, as I've told in other videos, there's some limitations with that one in the current Codesys compiler implementation. Conforming with the ISC safety aspects for programming, which are supplemented by extended type checks in the compiler. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of talk about the compiler. So here is my general thinking. They talk, is this a completely new compiler that is developed in-house at Beckhoff? Or is this in any way related to anything that Codesys is working on? I mean, I know Codesys are working on this new development environment, Codesys Go. I don't know whether Codesys Go is going to use the existing compiler S that Codesys already have, or whether that's completely new, or is this completely developed in-house by Beckhoff. So talking with Beckhoff, I don't have any inside information, but talking with Beckhoff at fairs, talking with Beckhoff, so I'm working with clients all over the world, and I get to talk with a lot of interesting people. My gut feeling is that Beckhoff are trying, or would want to try to disconnect a little bit more from Codesys. They want to, Codesys is fantastic, so I'm not saying anything bad about Codesys here. I think what they've done, especially considering the resources they have, is really, really amazing. But, it has still imposed some artificial restrictions and limitations on Beckhoff. Beckhoff growing and growing, probably have had the idea of making their own compiler. Is this it? I don't know. Very interesting. Seamless integration to DevOps. With TwinCAT PLC++, the program code is stored in plain text at file level for the first time. So, okay, so this is, of course, a big deal for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many gazillion, quadrillion, many millions of times I've been annoyed at this horrible, horrible XML markup that they're adding on their code. All my clients, all my projects are using version control. So primarily, with a few exceptions, Git. And whenever you're gonna work with some external tools, like if you're gonna put it into an automation build pipeline or anything, like you're using Azure DevOps, or you use GitHub, or if you use GitLab or any one of these providers, you're gonna go and wanna look at the code in some instances. And then it's extremely annoying to have all this markup language. I've talked so many times that I wish that Beckhoff had put the code in plain text. I even made a video, I'm going to put a link up here. I even made a video with Peter Korhajec about this, like 4 things we would want to have in a hypothetical future version of TwinCAT 4. And this was like, I think the first thing I mentioned, like plain text file. So I'm super happy that Beckhoff are finally including this, because there's like no reason for them to do this markup. I mean, I really don't see any reason. And thank you, Beckhoff. You are making thousands of souls, well, actually not thousands, 20,000 souls' life better. That's what you're making. These 20,000 people, maybe with a few not even knowing it, but 20,000 people are going to be very happy now. This simplifies the use of source code management systems such as Git, blah, 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 okay? What's more, the new compiler is available as a standalone component and can be called automatically via command line interface. This is fantastic. I've been asking for this for so long, and I think it's even included in this video with Peter that I recorded. So the problem with Beckhoff today is that if you want to do anything, even something as basic as building the project or running your unit test or building a library or whatever on any of this, running the static code analyzer, you have to fire up a full instance of Visual Studio or T6A shell, call it whatever you want. And relative to making a compilation, which can take 5 seconds, firing up this whole development environment, it's like it can take like up to 5 minutes. And if that's fine if you're a single developer working locally on your machine and you're working like all this old school type of development where you're working isolated from everyone else and you don't care about automating anything. But in a modern environment with people working 50 people together, you're writing your tests and you're making integration tests, you want to have fast feedback, right? You want to make your commit and get fast feedback immediately of whether that whether your code follows all the coding guidelines. So this is really a big deal. Okay, so many questions in my head here. I mean, will they really give access to everything? Is it can you do everything that you can do through the TwinCAT today, through the command line interface. Given that a complete engineering instance is no longer required, I mean, they explicitly mention it here, this allows automated processes for creating and testing program code in unit tests to be greatly optimized in terms of time. So they mention unit tests, but again, can you do everything else? Everything else that you're used to with Beckhoff, can you do that through the command line interface? Or is it just some of the more common things? I think this is definitely something I would want to have more information on and that I hope I will get soon. Therefore, the TwinCAT PLC++ offers an excellent foundation for seamlessly integrating PLC code development into DevOps workflows and for checking and ensuring code quality through automated test procedures. Automated tests, so okay, you see automated test mentioned a lot here. So again, this is more and more common in the industry. So, okay, my clients, and they are very biased, of course, all of them are working with automated tests, some even going with test-driven development, which is my preferred way to develop code. And I know that Beckhoff have identified this. I know Beckhoff are aware of the TC unit testing framework. And more of their clients are asking for this. So again, this is kind of like a free giveaway, because whenever you get into the IT industry and whenever you talk about working with tooling from the IT industry, you automatically get the thing with automated test. There's not a single programming language in the IT world that doesn't have a unit testing framework developed for it. Of course, I'm thinking, does it mean that they will include a unit testing framework, or can you still use TC Unit for this? I mean, TC Unit is a code assist library, so I guess not. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Very exciting. And very, very much looking forward to get more information on this as well. So here, TwinCAT PLC++ is based on the familiar TwinCAT architecture and is fully integrated into the proven TwinCAT ecosystem. So right now, I mean, I really don't know what this means. I mean, this is sales talk, right? Is it integrated into Visual Studio, so it's like a separate type of PLC project, or is it something like Semantic AX, so it's based on VS Code, so is it completely separate, or is it like, so if it's the former one, how is then that integrated? Is it a special type of TC-COM object? All this question popping up, right? Because I mean, it's one thing with the development environment itself, but there's so many more things going into it, right? I mean, you have all the safety editor, you have the thing with working with HMIs, motion control, the real-time configuration, all of these things. I mean, are they going to redo all of this for everything? Or is it going to be like a 5-stage rocket when they do a little bit at a time? Or is it just that they're saying, no, Jacob, no, this is only for the PLC code. This is only for PLC code. For all the other things, you still use TwinCAT. This is only for PLC code. So you can develop your PLC modules and run your unit test for them. But then if you want to do safety and you want to do motion control and you want to do everything else, then you got to integrate this PLC thing into that other thing that is the old, I don't want to use old, but the old TwinCAT, so to speak. I don't know. This is like, they don't say anything, and this drives me mad. Yeah, I wish I knew. I mean, so yeah, Bella, another very, very nice person. I'm going to try to read his mind. So I'm just going to, Bella, how will this look like? Crap. He told me, I'm not going to tell you. Complete compatibility with existing TwinCAT functions is ensured that the new generation can also be used in parallel with existing TwinCAT PLC if required. Okay, so new PLC generation can be used in parallel with existing. So I don't know how to interpret this. I mean, this is really open for interpretation, I would say. The available PLC libraries can also be used to the full extent. So, okay, available PLC library, the existing PLC library. So if I have an existing codesys-based library, because the Beckhoff libraries are basically just codesys libraries, right? They can still be used, okay? On the one hand, this enables a step-by-step changeover. I like that. I like this slow approach or slow change. That's great. With parallel TwinCAT PLC and TwinCAT PLC++ operation. So this is interesting. I mean, so this could go either way, right? It could literally be a completely separate development environment where you kind of take the existing libraries into it somehow. But how do you then do with all these other things? I can't see that. And especially, I mean, we don't even know about the time frame here, right? We don't know the time frame. I mean, this PLC++, we could talk about, this could be like a big wish list for everything, right? And they're going to say, you'll get this, but you're not going to get it until, 2080, when you're retired or dead, So you're going to get this, but not now. Or, they're going to announce that this is going to be released in a year, and then I don't think you're going to get a full isolated independent development environment where you can do safety, motion, HMI, and all the other things. I doubt that if that was the case. So kind of in my brain, I'm really interested in which path they're going to take here. On the blah, 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 on the other hand, an integrated converter enables the efficient transfer of existing program code so that existing expertise is easily available in TwinCAT PLC++. I mean, for me, this sounds like something completely new, completely isolated from the existing TwinCAT. It sounds like it. I mean, right now, when I read this again, because this is like the third time I'm reading this, I'm now starting to weigh a little over to the side where it's gonna be a completely new development environment, not based on, I mean, of course, based on the old TwinCAT development environment, but it's still gonna be completely new, and that means that this is probably not gonna come out anytime soon. For example, the existing TwinCAT scope and HMI applications can continue to be used unchanged. Switching therefore involves little effort. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just HMI editor, the HMI editor integration into Visual Studio. I mean, that must have been a big project for Beckhoff. I can't even imagine. But just looking at all the things they've done for the HMIs, I really like the HMI editor. By the way, I think it's great. For me, that's not a front end person. I like it because I can make quick and nice HMIs for my clients when I need it. And, is this going to be integrated into this new environment, or do they mean that the TwinCAT HMI application stuff and scope and motion and all the other things is going to be still in the old one, but you can easily have the PLC and HMI? I don't know. It's really like they're talking in riddles here a little bit, or at least they open a lot up for interpretation. Okay, so there's some other things here. In a nutshell, TwinCAT PLC++ is the latest PLC generation available in the TwinCAT system. The runtime and engineering performance is improved. Great. Creating significant added value, and the switch is easy to make while preserving current TwinCAT functionality. A real plus for the user. So yeah, I think this is extremely exciting. Obviously, I have so many questions in my head, but you know, there's one thing with everything related to PLC, right? With everything related to the compiler. So I'm assuming that this is gonna be a new compiler that Beckhoff are developing. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Let's see. But even, you know, if they only make that, you know, how is this gonna be playing with everything else that exists? So the PLC, again, that's only writing your ladder logic, writing your structured text. That's only a tiny, tiny fraction of everything that we do. Even, you know, even if you talk about PLCs, obviously there's a lot of stuff doing with controls engineers, but even if you only think about the thing you have basically in your solution file, if I say it like that, you know, there's so many other things. Like they mentioned here, TwinCAT HMI scope, but we have the real-time stuff, we have motion control, safety, I/O. I mean, I/O, they haven't mentioned the I/O. How are you gonna do the linking to I/O? Again, the current users of Beckhoff and TwinCAT, and you know, also including myself, actually, you know, I really enjoy how easy it is to kind of get an ETCAT master up and fired up, and link my variables to the I/O tree. How is that going to look here? Is that going to be retained? So this is only going to be changing the things that basically under the PLC node, so to speak, and everything else will be equal. I wasn't planning to go to SPS. This has changed. I will go to SPS now because I definitely want to see this. And that also means that I recommend you to subscribe to my channel, because as soon as I have more information, I for sure will make more videos about this. And I want to finish just with something related to this, but I just want to take a step back and think about, you know, how our industry is changing, right? We're talking about these practices from the IT world, and you know, we have the kind of conservative automation industry, conservative for a good reason. I'm not judging, conservative for a good reason. But, you know, we have this development from the IT industry that is quite absurd, you know, over the last 30 years. At least since I started, it's just been absurd what developments are done in the IT industry with, you know, there's a gazillion frameworks. There's, you know, I mean, there's just so much happening in the IT industry. And, you know, in OT, we have different requirements and you know, different users. There's a lot of things that are different, but there's a lot of things in the IT that are just, you know, kind of like low-hanging fruits that everyone in OT should be doing. I mean, if we just take something simple like version control, I can't think of one single reason why you wouldn't do version control. I mean, there really shouldn't be. And the only reason I can think of is, okay, I don't know how to do it, but that's not a valid reason. Then you should learn how to do it. There's really no reason. And no, I don't want to do version control because I don't want to deliver that to my client. Okay, but then do version control internally and just deliver that, export that, you know, when you deliver it. But internally, okay, so I'm not going to advocate for that. Obviously, all my followers, I assume, most of them use version control. But, you know, I see these IT practices coming more and more into this industry. And I think, you know, so Beckhoff, for me, they have always been at the forefront of this. But now I also see others coming here. So Siemens with the Simatic AX, which I made a video about a few months ago, but also Codesys with the Codesys Go, which is kind of like, you know, they haven't said anything about when they're going to release it. So it's something that's in the works, but they're also talking about exactly these kind of things there, right? It's much more web-based and everything, but they still talk about this thing with, you know, automated testing and plain source code and, you know, CI/CD, DevOps, all these keywords. And I think that's very, very exciting because, again, I'm doing this today with a lot of clients, and this works tremendously well in the world of OT. So there's no reason for, you know, for people in the automation industry to ignore these things that they mention here. Absolutely not. And you know, this just shows that the industry is changing, whether people want it or not. The opportunities here are just too big to ignore. There's just a very, 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 very big upside to adopting IT practices in the OT industry. Anyway, I don't know why I did this video. I just wanted to talk to get my thoughts out there in the world. I'm very happy, Beckhoff, that you're doing this. Looking forward to you releasing more information about it. And until next time, happy coding.